All right, well, welcome to TEDx.
I'd like to talk to you about Maria. When my team met Maria last spring, she was nearing the end of her pregnancy, but she was also being evicted. She had fallen behind on rent and she had tried to work it out with her landlord, but her landlord had rebuffed her efforts and instead had gone to court seeking her removal from the property. Now, when we met her, she was at the courthouse trying to untangle the mess and stay in her apartment for the birth of her baby, but it wasn't going well. And it wasn't going well because Maria, like the vast majority of those who are facing eviction, had no counsel to help her. As she told my team, I know that I have rights. The thing is, sometimes they don't really allow you to exercise your rights. There is always a barrier. So many people think the civil justice system looks like this, right? But it doesn't actually. It looks like this, or like this, or like this. As my mentor, the late Professor Deborah L of Stanford Law School used to say, it is a shameful irony that the nation with the highest proportion of lawyers fails so miserably to make their services available to those who need them most. On the criminal side of the docket, competent counsel is a right, but too rarely a reality, creating a world where, as Deborah would put it, it is often better to be rich and guilty than poor and innocent. And on the civil side of the docket, there is no right to counsel, and things are arguably worse. In fact, in 75%, 3/4 of cases in the American civil justice system, at least one side, like Maria, lacks a lawyer. And they are trying to navigate a baffling system alone. And in some areas of law, the disparities are even sharper. And in all these areas, women are particularly hard hit. The symbol of justice, but rarely the recipients. In fact, women are more likely to be evicted from their homes or apartments. They're more likely to be sued for debt collection actions. And in 80% of the cases involving termination of parental rights, 80% of those cases involve mothers. And in all these areas, race intersects with gender, meaning that women of color, as in so many other areas, are particularly disadvantaged. So this is the visible pro se crisis. Pro se is Latin, it means for oneself. This pro se crisis, all these people trying to navigate really complicated courts by themselves. This crisis is visible, it is widespread, and it is wreaking havoc on our courts. But below the pro se crisis lies a larger and in some ways more brutal crisis. And this involves the tens of millions of Americans who have genuine legal problems, who have rights that could be vindicated, but who take no action to vindicate their rights. And this is a serious problem, because some of the rights that could be but are not being vindicated are very important, like an accident victim who needs medical care and can't get it. A person who needs asylum in order to have sanctuary and can't get it. A mom who needs child support in order to feed her family and cannot get it. A domestic violence victim who needs a domestic violence restraining order in order to stay safe and cannot get it. And when it comes to all this, the United States is really bad. So the World Justice Project creates a comprehensive rule of law index where it assesses countries based on various metrics. And the United States is 126 out of 139 countries when it comes to the accessibility and affordability of civil justice. We are dead last among countries in our income bracket, and we are behind, for example, Uzbekistan and Angola. So what explains all this? Why do we have this system? I've thought about this for years, and one of the culprits I see is the lawyer's monopoly. So in the United States, in order to practice law, you need a law license. And what does it mean to practice law? It means to provide even simple legal advice for a legal problem. So what we call unauthorized practice of law, the provision of legal advice without a law license, is a crime. And this is a very serious problem. What this means is that law can't do what other industries have done. We've heard from a lot of doctors today. In medicine, in order to extend the reach of physicians, we have nurse practitioners, we have physician assistants. That allows trained professionals to see more patients. Law has no equivalent. I call this the two-door problem. When it comes to law, it is you either go by yourself or you have Cadillac counsel, and it really is Cadillac counsel. Even a second-year associate is more than $300 an hour, more than most people can afford. Another clear culprit is complexity. So here we are, we're in Menlo Park. We're on the border of two counties, San Mateo County, Santa Clara County. It turns out filing requirements differ as between the two counties. So if you need a domestic violence restraining order, there's one set of requirements in Santa Clara and another set of requirements in San Mateo. And by the way, the requirements themselves are complicated. So here's the form, and it says, fill this out for your domestic violence restraining order. Oh, and by the way, you might need additional forms, see page 12, and maybe there are additional forms beyond that, go talk to the clerk of the court. That is really complicated for folks without lawyers to navigate. And then this complexity has another problem too. There's a checkerboard. The fact that San Mateo and Santa Clara are different means that's replicated across the country, and it defeats scalable solutions. So we don't have anything like a TurboTax for restraining orders, because there's no tech provider who could do it, because you would need to create thousands of such systems. So what do we need to do? What do we need to do to address the access to justice crisis? One of the things we need to do is to double down on the obvious. So we need more money for legal aid, and lawyers need to actually fulfill their pro bono commitments. Right now, legal aid is so stretched that they turn around about half of those who seek their help and who qualify for help. In order to do their jobs, they need more money, and we should be providing it. Second, we need to do a lot of things to make courts more accessible. Third, we need to harness technology. As it is, there's no AI tool to, for example, help Maria know where in Los Angeles resources might be available and to direct her to appropriate resources. This kind of technology should be available to help people. And fourth, we need to change courts themselves. Courts were built by lawyers for lawyers. Now they're being used by folks without lawyers. So there is this total mismatch between what courts were designed to do and what they're doing, and they need to adapt. And we need to help them to adapt. That means simpler forms, streamlined procedures, and perhaps even a rethinking of the judicial role. So I am so proud at Stanford. I lead a center, the Deborah L. Center on the legal profession. and we are working on all of this. One of the things we're doing is we have the Filing Fairness Project. Here we're partnering with 6 states, actually roughly 1 in 4 Americans, to make those forms easier and more similar across states. And the hope is that tech providers then could enter the system. We want to create on-ramps into civil justice for those, for example, who need domestic violence restraining orders. 2, we are working with courts themselves. So for example, we're partnering with the LA Superior Court, which is the biggest court system in the entire country, to try to reduce the barriers that are keeping self-represented individuals from seeking justice. And third, we are trying to responsibly address the lawyer's monopoly. There should be a third door. It should not be lawyer or bust. We've got to create responsible means to have trained professionals help folks with legal problems. You don't need a brain surgeon to help with your sprained ankle, and you don't need a lawyer for all legal problems. So here is my hope, that together we can promote civil justice and dismantle the barriers that keep Maria and so many others like her from getting the help they need. Using women as a symbol of justice while denying justice to women is not how it is supposed to be.
Thank you, Professor Nora.